It was a morning like any other in the bustling financial district, where the city's wealthiest individuals navigated the high-stakes world of business, mergers, and billion-dollar deals. Skyscrapers glistened in the early sunlight, their glass facades reflecting the promise of power, influence, and unshakable authority. But on that particular day, what unfolded in one of these towering offices was anything but ordinary. At exactly 9:17 a.m., a small figure appeared in the lobby of one of the city's most exclusive corporate headquarters, an 8-year-old girl whose presence would shatter the calm, calculated atmosphere that the building typically maintained. The little girl, her hair slightly disheveled and her small backpack dangling from one shoulder, walked with a hurried, uneven pace toward the security desk, her eyes wide and searching. Her expression was a mix of fear and urgency, a combination that immediately drew attention from staff and visitors alike. "Sir, my mom didn't wake up," she said in a voice that was trembling but startlingly clear, words that instantly cut through the usual hum of the office, freezing everyone nearby. Those 3 words, delivered with the innocence and honesty only a child can convey, triggered a ripple of alarm throughout the building. Security personnel, trained to handle crises ranging from minor disturbances to corporate threats, were caught off guard. This was no ordinary emergency. This was a situation that demanded immediate human response, and no amount of training could fully prepare anyone for the raw urgency of a child pleading for help. The girl's tiny frame seemed fragile, yet her words carried weight beyond her years, piercing through the ordinary rhythm of the office and directly into the heart of those who heard her. The billionaire, a man whose name is known in every corner of the financial world, was in his office, reviewing quarterly reports and preparing for a high-profile meeting with investors from abroad. Known for his meticulous planning, strategic acumen, and a calm demeanor that rarely wavered, he had never before been seen visibly unsettled by anything in the business realm. Yet, the moment he heard the little girl's words, the color drained from his face. Employees who had observed him for years described the sight as almost surreal, a stark departure from the unflappable image he maintained publicly. The man who could negotiate mergers worth billions and handle hostile takeovers without breaking a sweat now stood frozen for a brief, almost imperceptible moment, registering the gravity of a crisis far removed from balance sheets and profit margins. Within seconds, his instincts overrode his initial shock. He rose from his chair, his mind already racing through possibilities and courses of action. The child's eyes, filled with a mixture of hope and fear, locked onto him as she repeated her plea, her voice quivering slightly but still resolute. "Sir, my mom didn't wake up," she insisted, as if saying it once more would somehow make the situation more real to those around her. Witnesses noted that the billionaire's typical calm authority was replaced by an urgency that reflected the seriousness of the moment. Without hesitation, he motioned to his assistant and security personnel to call emergency services immediately while keeping the little girl close, offering a reassuring smile despite the tension that was clearly visible on his face. The office atmosphere transformed instantly. The usual air of corporate precision, punctuated by the clicking of keyboards and muted phone conversations, was replaced with a tense silence, punctuated only by the sound of hurried footsteps and low murmurs. Employees peered from behind glass walls and office partitions, watching as the billionaire, usually immersed in charts, contracts, and international business calls, now prioritized the child's safety above everything else. His attention was unwavering, his focus sharp, and yet there was a vulnerability in his posture that made the entire scene feel deeply human. People who had never witnessed him outside the context of power and wealth were suddenly seeing a man stripped of pretense, confronted with the raw reality of human fragility. The little girl, sensing the magnitude of the moment, clutched the edge of a nearby chair as if anchoring herself against the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. Her small voice, initially trembling, began to regain strength as she recounted what had happened, explaining that her mother had not woken up despite repeated attempts. Her words, simple yet powerful, conveyed a sense of urgency that no adult could ignore. The billionaire listened intently, nodding, his eyes never leaving her face, absorbing every detail she offered. He asked a few calm questions, carefully choosing his words so as not to frighten her further, but always pressing forward with a need to understand the full scope of the situation. As the minutes ticked by, emergency services were en route, their presence signaled by the distant wail of sirens that grew steadily louder. But the billionaire did not wait passively. He moved with precision and purpose, guiding the child to a more comfortable position in the office, ensuring that she felt safe and supported. His gestures, though composed, betrayed the depth of his concern, his hands lightly resting on her shoulders, a silent promise that she was not alone. Witnesses remarked on the unusual scene. A man of immense power and influence, often depicted in media as untouchable, now entirely focused on protecting and comforting a frightened child, a role far removed from the boardroom battles for which he was known. Media outlets and social networks would later describe this scene as a rare and poignant example of humanity overriding status and wealth. The billionaire, whose life is typically chronicled through headlines about financial success, acquisitions, and philanthropy, was suddenly defined by something far more elemental: compassion and urgency in the face of a potential tragedy. Observers noted that the child's courage, paired with the billionaire's swift and decisive response, created a moment that transcended ordinary news reporting, a human story that captivated everyone who heard about it. By the time paramedics arrived at the office to gather necessary details before reaching the child's residence, the billionaire had already made all the arrangements to accompany them, insisting that he would ensure the girl and her mother received immediate care. His instructions were clear, precise, and driven by a concern that went beyond professional obligation. It was a moral imperative, an instinctual response to a child in distress. Employees who had witnessed the entire interaction commented that this was one of the most intense and emotional events they had ever seen, a moment where the veneer of wealth and corporate prestige was stripped away, leaving only pure human concern. Even as the child was guided out of the office, her small hand tightly held by the billionaire's, the memory of her plea lingered in the minds of everyone present. "Sir, my mom didn't wake up," she had said, words that were now etched into the collective consciousness of those who had witnessed the exchange. It was a reminder of how fragile life could be, how quickly normalcy could be disrupted, and how essential it was to respond with both urgency and compassion when faced with the unexpected. By the end of the morning, news outlets had picked up the story, sharing images and eyewitness accounts that painted a vivid picture of the events. Social media erupted with admiration, astonishment, and concern as people around the city, and eventually the world, followed the unfolding events. The image of the billionaire, usually associated with financial power and elite status, standing beside a frightened little girl, offering comfort and immediate action, became emblematic of a universal truth: wealth, status, and influence mean little in the face of human vulnerability, but how one responds in such moments reveals the character within. The incident would later be cited in numerous news reports, blogs, and human interest articles, each emphasizing the unusual combination of wealth, responsibility, and human empathy that defined the morning's events. Psychologists and social commentators noted the importance of adults responding calmly yet decisively to children in distress, highlighting the billionaire's actions as a textbook example of instinctive compassion paired with strategic thinking. But for those who had witnessed the scene firsthand, it was more than a lesson. It was an unforgettable moment of humanity breaking through the barriers of status, a reminder that even in the most elite circles, life's fragility and urgency command attention. The morning began as any other, with sunlight bouncing off skyscrapers and city streets humming with routine activity. By mid-morning, however, the world had shifted slightly, if only for those who had been present. A little girl's words, simple and unadorned, had pierced the walls of wealth and power, demanding an immediate response. And the billionaire, a man accustomed to commanding boardrooms, had proven that true authority is not only measured in money or influence, but also in the willingness to act with urgency, compassion, and humanity when confronted with the unexpected. The office, once silent and orderly, had witnessed a rare convergence of innocence and power, fear and action, creating a moment that would not soon be forgotten by anyone who had been there. The response of the billionaire, whose life had been defined by calculated decisions and high-stakes business maneuvers, to the child's desperate plea was immediate, precise, and unlike anything his colleagues had ever witnessed. Within moments of hearing the words, "Sir, my mom didn't wake up," he had shifted from the controlled poise of the corporate world into the raw urgency of human concern, leaving no time for hesitation or protocol. Emergency services had been contacted, yet his focus remained entirely on the child, the gravity of the situation reflected in the steady, purposeful manner in which he moved to ensure she was supported both emotionally and physically. There was a rare intensity in his eyes, a flicker of vulnerability mingled with decisive action, signaling to everyone present that this was not a matter of business strategy, but a matter of life, of human survival. That AS paramedics were dispatched to the child's residence. The billionaire insisted on accompanying them, a decision that surprised even his closest aides. While many would have considered the logistics of the office, the meetings scheduled, and the meticulous planning of the day ahead, he disregarded all of it, choosing instead to prioritize the urgent and immediate need before him. Employees watched in silence, some holding their phones to capture the rare vulnerability displayed by a man whose reputation had always been synonymous with power, control, and authority. They understood instinctively that this was more than a public relations moment. It was a genuine human response, an acknowledgement that wealth and status pale in comparison to the fragility of life and the trust placed in another human being, particularly when that trust comes from a child. During the brief journey to the residence, the atmosphere inside the vehicle was charged with tension. The child, seated beside him, held his hand tightly, her small fingers gripping his with a trust that was instinctive, unspoken, and profound. She had entered his office moments earlier as a stranger, yet in the span of a few heartbeats, he had become her anchor in a world that had suddenly turned frighteningly uncertain. The billionaire, normally engaged in discussions about investments, market strategies, and mergers, now focused entirely on understanding the immediate medical situation. His questions were calm, clear, and directed at the paramedics, not to interrogate, but to ensure that no detail was overlooked. Every instruction he gave, every suggestion he made, conveyed urgency tempered by a disciplined mind accustomed to high-pressure situations. Yet this time the stakes were unmistakably personal, far removed from boardroom calculations. Outside the child's home, neighbors had begun to gather, drawn by the flashing lights of emergency vehicles and the unusual sight of a high-profile figure moving quickly with paramedics toward a seemingly ordinary residence. Whispers ran through the small crowd, speculation about the identity of the man, the severity of the situation, and the story behind the child's sudden appearance. Some recognized the billionaire instantly, their eyes widening at the sight of someone of such immense wealth and influence, so visibly concerned with an immediate human crisis. Others were initially unsure, focusing more on the tense body language, the small hand held so protectively, and the air of urgency that radiated from both the child and the man accompanying her. The paramedics worked efficiently, explaining the procedure to both the billionaire and the child, detailing the steps they would take to assess the mother's condition and provide immediate care. The billionaire listened intently, absorbing every word, nodding occasionally, and repeating details back to ensure clarity and understanding. His demeanor reflected a rare combination of attentiveness and calm authority, a balance between emotional investment and structured decision-making that reassured everyone present that he was fully capable of assisting in the crisis without allowing panic to overtake the situation. The child, sensing his unwavering focus, began to relax slightly, her breathing more even as she realized that she was no longer alone, that someone with influence and determination was committed to helping her and her mother. Once inside the residence, the paramedics immediately began their assessment, with the billionaire standing close to the child, offering quiet comfort and guidance. His presence was steadying, a silent message to both the child and the medical team that she was supported, protected, and that no effort would be spared to address the emergency. Throughout the process, he asked pertinent questions about medical history, any known conditions, and the timeline of the events leading up to her mother's collapse. These inquiries, though methodical, were delivered with genuine concern rather than clinical detachment, reinforcing the fact that his motivation was not public recognition but immediate, tangible assistance. Neighbors and onlookers noted the unusual contrast between the high-profile figure and the intimate, deeply human crisis unfolding before their eyes. Here was a man accustomed to commanding vast resources, controlling industries, and influencing global markets, now entirely absorbed in a domestic emergency, where the stakes were not money or reputation but life itself. Witnesses described a palpable shift in the energy surrounding the scene, as the billionaire's actions transformed what could have been a chaotic and panicked response into a demonstration of calm, purposeful intervention. The child's trust, evident in the way she clung to him, highlighted a profound truth. In moments of crisis, authority and reassurance are not measured by status, but by attentiveness, empathy, and decisive action. The medical team quickly prepared to transport the mother to the hospital, with the billionaire insisting on accompanying both the child and the paramedics. His presence, they noted, was not merely symbolic. He actively assisted in coordinating the logistics of transport, ensuring that traffic routes were clear, hospital staff were alerted, and that no time would be lost. His ability to merge strategic planning with compassionate urgency made a visible difference in the efficiency and speed of the response. Throughout, the child remained close, her small hand held in his, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear, hope, and gradual relief. Each step was met with reassuring words, soft tones, and a steady presence that reminded her she was not alone in navigating a frightening and unfamiliar ordeal. As the ambulance departed for the hospital, local media had already begun covering the story. News vans arrived, helicopters hovered overhead, and social media buzzed with real-time updates about the child's plight and the billionaire's involvement. For many, the story represented more than just an isolated incident. It became a symbol of human decency and responsibility, showing that no matter one's status, the choice to act with urgency and compassion in the face of another person's distress defines character in a way that public accolades and wealth never can. Commentators on news programs discussed the psychological impact of such a high-profile figure responding so visibly to a child's emergency, noting that it set a precedent for empathy, action, and prioritization of life over business or self-interest. Inside the ambulance, the billionaire remained focused, asking the child questions about her mother's recent health, medications, and symptoms, ensuring that the paramedics had all relevant information for immediate treatment upon arrival at the hospital. His demeanor was unwavering, a blend of reassurance, attentiveness, and active problem-solving, demonstrating a rare ability to combine emotional support with practical action. The child, meanwhile, began to speak more freely, her initial fear replaced by a cautious confidence that the man beside her was fully invested in ensuring her mother's safety. The rapport between them, though brief in time, was profound in intensity, highlighting the power of compassion, focus, and presence in the midst of crisis. By the time the ambulance reached the hospital, the story had already gone viral. Social media feeds were filled with eyewitness accounts, photographs, and commentary, emphasizing the unusual and deeply human interaction between a billionaire and a frightened child. Journalists described the scene in detail, focusing on the urgency, calm authority, and empathy demonstrated throughout the incident. Analysts discussed the broader implications of such an event, noting that moments like these reveal the essential humanity that underlies public personas, reminding audiences that even the most powerful individuals are capable of acts of profound care and responsibility when confronted with life or death situations. Hospital staff immediately took over, with the billionaire providing all pertinent information and ensuring the child remained supported and calm. Paramedics and medical personnel praised his composure, efficiency, and empathy, noting that his involvement helped streamline the admission and initial treatment process. The child, reassured by his steady presence, began to regain a sense of control amidst the uncertainty, her trust in him providing emotional stability during a time of fear and confusion. By mid-morning, updates from the hospital confirmed that the mother was receiving immediate care and that her condition was being closely monitored. The story of the little girl, her mother, and the billionaire who responded so urgently had quickly captured the attention of the entire city, and by mid-afternoon, it had become a headline across national news outlets. Social media feeds were flooded with posts, images, and eyewitness accounts, each offering their perspective on the extraordinary events of the morning. For many, the narrative was more than just a dramatic incident. It was a profound human story that contrasted sharply with the cold, calculated world of corporate finance in which the billionaire typically operated. Analysts, commentators, and the general public alike were captivated not only by the unusual circumstances, but by the raw emotional response that had defined the billionaire's actions. The immediacy and empathy he displayed were viewed as a testament to the universal capacity for compassion, regardless of wealth or social standing. As the initial shock of the incident settled, community members began to reflect on what had unfolded. Neighbors who had witnessed the events outside the child's home spoke of the palpable tension, the anxiety that had gripped them, and the remarkable way in which the billionaire had handled the situation. Many expressed admiration for his composure and decisiveness, noting that despite his immense public profile, he had acted with humility and humanity, prioritizing the needs of the child and her mother above all else. Conversations in the neighborhood, once focused on the routine of daily life, now revolved around discussions of empathy, civic responsibility, and the unexpected ways in which human kindness can manifest. The morning had become a point of communal reflection, a reminder that even in the midst of personal fear and uncertainty, acts of care and intervention can inspire and reassure entire communities. Meanwhile, news teams had arrived at the hospital, reporting on the child's mother, who was now under close medical supervision. While details about her condition were understandably limited, sources confirmed that she was receiving immediate care from a team of specialists. The billionaire's presence throughout the process had been noted repeatedly by medical staff, who praised his calm demeanor, attentiveness, and emotional support. Unlike typical high-profile visitors who might dominate hospital space or media attention, he had remained focused entirely on the child, ensuring she felt secure, providing quiet comfort, and assisting wherever necessary. His actions underscored a deeper awareness of the human impact of medical emergencies, demonstrating that influence and resources, when combined with empathy, can play a crucial role in alleviating fear and providing stability during critical moments. Public reaction intensified as video footage and photos from eyewitnesses circulated online. Audiences were struck by the image of a billionaire holding a frightened child's hand while ensuring her mother's well-being. Commentators emphasized that while many wealthy individuals engage in philanthropy or public acts of generosity, few are ever publicly seen responding directly to such immediate, deeply personal crises. The story quickly became a touchstone for discussions about compassion, social responsibility, and the human side of those who often appear untouchable due to their wealth and status. Analysts noted that the incident revealed the often overlooked fact that regardless of social rank or material success, every individual can be confronted by circumstances that demand immediate moral and emotional action. In the hours following the incident, local authorities and emergency personnel confirmed that the mother's condition was stable, though she remained under careful observation. The child, reassured by the billionaire's presence, was able to articulate her needs and provide critical information to medical staff, a factor that may have significantly impacted the efficiency of treatment. Hospital officials praised her bravery and composure, noting that children in emergencies often experience heightened anxiety and fear, which can complicate communication. The billionaire's calm, supportive presence was credited with creating an environment in which the child felt safe to communicate, further underscoring the profound impact that empathy and decisive action can have in critical situations. Media coverage extended beyond traditional reporting, with human interest segments delving into the emotional dimensions of the story. Commentators highlighted the contrast between the billionaire's usual world of high finance and the stark reality of life-or-death emergencies, noting how swiftly he had adapted his behavior to meet the immediate needs of a child in distress. Psychologists interviewed on television and online platforms discussed the importance of adult intervention in childhood emergencies, emphasizing that the presence of a trusted, calm figure can dramatically reduce fear and anxiety. They pointed to this incident as a textbook example of effective emotional support, noting that the billionaire's combination of calm reassurance, active engagement, and focused problem-solving had likely helped the child maintain composure during a highly stressful and frightening event. The community's response was equally notable. Local residents, inspired by the extraordinary circumstances, spoke of the incident in terms that transcended mere admiration. Many emphasized the importance of readiness, compassion, and moral responsibility in daily life, suggesting that the billionaire's actions had set a benchmark for community ethics and behavior. The incident sparked conversations in schools, workplaces, and social circles about how individuals could be more prepared to respond to emergencies, how empathy can be enacted in practical ways, and how even small actions of care can make a profound difference. For many, the events of that morning served as a reminder that heroism is not defined solely by extraordinary feats or grand gestures, but by the willingness to act decisively and compassionately when confronted with another person's vulnerability. As evening approached, the narrative continued to evolve. Media outlets provided updates on the mother's condition, reassuring the public that she was receiving appropriate care. Social media threads highlighted the child's courage and the billionaire's responsiveness, generating widespread commentary about the rare intersection of status, humanity, and moral responsibility. Analysts noted that the story exemplified how high-profile individuals can leverage not only resources but also presence and attention to produce meaningful human impact. Observers were struck by the broader lesson embedded in the morning's events, that crises, particularly those involving children or vulnerable individuals, often reveal the truest measure of character and ethical responsibility. In addition to professional analysis, ordinary citizens weighed in, sharing personal reflections on what the incident had revealed about the nature of empathy and leadership. Many commented that the billionaire's actions demonstrated that wealth alone is not sufficient to define societal contribution, and that moral courage, compassion, and a willingness to act in the moment are equally, if not more, important. Teachers, parents, and social workers highlighted the story as a teaching moment, emphasizing the ways in which children and adults alike can learn from the combination of bravery, attentiveness, and practical action demonstrated throughout the incident. The narrative became both a public fascination and a source of societal reflection, inspiring conversations about responsibility, ethics, and the human capacity for care. By late evening, the story had achieved a sense of permanence in the public imagination. Articles, opinion pieces, and broadcast segments focused not just on the event itself, but on the broader implications for society. Commentators highlighted the rarity of witnessing such direct, immediate intervention by someone of immense wealth, emphasizing that the billionaire's actions were not performative but genuine, rooted in instinctive empathy and moral responsibility. The child's courage, paired with the billionaire's proactive engagement, was celebrated as an example of human resilience and solidarity, demonstrating that even in moments of profound uncertainty, decisive and compassionate action can provide hope and stability. As the public reflected on the morning's events, attention began to turn to the aftermath, including the ongoing medical care of the mother and the child's emotional well-being. Experts emphasized that while the immediate crisis had been addressed, the psychological and emotional support necessary for recovery would continue to be vital. Social workers and child psychologists noted that the billionaire's presence and attentiveness could have lasting positive effects, helping to mitigate the trauma associated with such a frightening experience. Furthermore, the story served as a broader reminder that human intervention, when combined with empathy and presence, has the power to influence outcomes in ways that extend far beyond the initial moment of crisis. By the close of the day, the narrative had firmly established itself as more than just a local news story. It had become a symbol of human empathy intersecting with responsibility and influence, demonstrating that in moments of crisis, true leadership is measured not by financial acumen or public visibility, but by the willingness to act decisively, compassionately, and attentively in response to the needs of others. The little girl, her mother, and the billionaire had become central figures in a story that resonated far beyond their immediate community, a story that emphasized the enduring importance of human connection, moral courage, and the profound impact of thoughtful, immediate action. The following morning, the city awoke not only to the usual hum of activity, but also to the lingering resonance of the previous day's extraordinary events. Headlines dominated newsstands, websites, and social media feeds, recounting the moment a frightened child had arrived at a billionaire's office, the chilling words she uttered, and the rapid, compassionate response that had ensued. The story had captured the imagination of the public, drawing attention from across the nation and beyond, and serving as a reminder that human vulnerability can transcend social, economic, and professional boundaries. Analysts and commentators emphasized the unusual combination of wealth, status, and moral courage, noting that few people, regardless of resources, would respond with the same immediacy and genuine concern displayed by the billionaire. Public sentiment remained overwhelmingly positive, with widespread admiration for the billionaire's actions. Citizens expressed awe at the manner in which he had prioritized the child's welfare over every other concern, demonstrating a rare synthesis of authority, empathy, and swift problem-solving. The media continued to highlight not only his involvement, but also the emotional impact of his actions on the child, whose trust had been earned in mere moments through calm reassurance, protective presence, and attentive care. Psychologists and child development experts reiterated the significance of such gestures, emphasizing that the presence of a trusted adult in high-stress situations can profoundly affect a child's emotional state, reducing fear, improving cooperation, and even influencing recovery outcomes. The billionaire's involvement had become a case study in practical compassion, an example of how influence and resources can be effectively utilized to support human life in immediate, tangible ways. Meanwhile, the child's mother remained under close observation, with medical staff providing updates to both family members and the child. The seriousness of her condition had underscored the urgency of the previous day's events, reinforcing the importance of rapid response and effective intervention. Reports indicated that her treatment was proceeding successfully, and that the early actions taken by both the child and the billionaire had played a critical role in enabling medical personnel to act swiftly. The mother's gradual stabilization was welcomed by the public, whose attention had followed the story closely, and by the community that had been touched by the narrative of courage, urgency, and human connection. The combined presence of emergency professionals, compassionate intervention, and vigilant observation highlighted the intricate interplay between expertise, empathy, and decisive action in times of crisis. The story's impact extended far beyond the immediate family. Schools, social organizations, and community groups began discussing the incident in broader terms, emphasizing lessons in preparedness, awareness, and human responsibility. Educational programs incorporated elements of the narrative to teach children about the importance of seeking help, communicating clearly during emergencies, and recognizing trustworthy adults who can provide assistance. Social organizations highlighted the moral dimensions of the billionaire's actions, using them as examples of how individuals can act decisively and ethically in situations that demand immediate attention. Across multiple forums, the narrative became more than news. It evolved into a tool for teaching civic responsibility, empathy, and moral courage. As social media continued to buzz, analysis of the incident extended into deeper explorations of emotional intelligence, ethical responsibility, and societal expectations of high-profile individuals. Commentators noted that while wealth and status often provide opportunities for influence and philanthropy, they rarely intersect so directly with immediate human need in a way visible to the public. The billionaire's actions were examined as a demonstration of situational empathy, the ability to assess, prioritize, and respond effectively in moments of crisis, and as a reminder that moral and ethical responsibility is not a function of fame or resources, but of willingness and presence. Discussions also focused on the potential psychological benefits of his involvement for the child, emphasizing how trust, reassurance, and consistent presence can mitigate trauma and provide stability in the aftermath of frightening events. In the broader community, residents reflected on the significance of the incident in everyday life. Many remarked that while emergencies can occur anywhere and at any time, the visibility of compassionate response from a high-profile individual reinforced public confidence in both human decency and institutional efficiency. Citizens noted the importance of preparedness, the role of empathy in shaping community culture, and the broader implications of modeling responsible behavior for future generations. Local leaders praised the story as a reminder that societal well-being is strengthened when individuals act decisively, ethically, and with genuine concern for the vulnerable, illustrating that leadership is as much about moral action as it is about governance, influence, or status. The narrative also prompted reflection on media coverage, with analysts praising the balanced reporting that emphasized both the urgency of the situation and the human qualities displayed throughout. While sensational details often dominate news cycles, the coverage in this instance highlighted character, response, and practical outcomes, reinforcing positive societal values. By framing the story around empathy, responsibility, and swift action, journalists were able to engage audiences emotionally while providing instructive examples of how individuals, regardless of social position, can contribute meaningfully during emergencies. The child's courage, the billionaire's attentiveness, and the efficiency of medical personnel combined to create a compelling narrative that resonated far beyond the immediate locality. Experts in child psychology and crisis management continued to weigh in, offering perspectives on how children perceive emergencies and the role of adults in moderating fear and facilitating effective responses. Analysts noted that the child's decision to seek help, her clear articulation of the situation, and her ability to trust a previously unknown adult were remarkable under any circumstances, particularly given her young age. The billionaire's ability to respond in a calm, authoritative, yet empathetic manner had not only reassured the child, but had likely prevented panic, reducing the potential for secondary emotional trauma. Observers emphasized that such interventions are rarely accidental. They are the result of presence of mind, emotional intelligence, and moral commitment. all qualities the billionaire displayed in abundance. Social media platforms became forums for extensive discussion, with posts analyzing the ethical dimensions of the incident and praising the billionaire's direct involvement. Users highlighted the contrast between typical high-profile responses, often mediated by assistants, publicists, or controlled statements, and the hands-on engagement witnessed in this case. The narrative also sparked wider conversation about the ways in which individuals can act to protect and support others in emergencies, emphasizing that true leadership and influence are measured not only by strategic or financial outcomes, but by the willingness to respond decisively in moments of human vulnerability. Meanwhile, the hospital continued to provide updates, confirming the mother's progress and the child's well-being. Family members, grateful for the intervention and the attention given, expressed appreciation for the billionaire's presence, highlighting the emotional and psychological support he had provided during a time of intense stress. Public officials acknowledged the broader significance of the story, noting that it serves as a model of human empathy intersecting with practical action, a reminder that society benefits when individuals leverage their resources, influence, and moral judgment to aid those in urgent need. By the evening, reflections on the incident extended beyond immediate news coverage, inspiring discussions on forums, talk shows, and academic platforms. The story was cited as a contemporary example of how compassion, courage, and resourcefulness can intersect to address real-world crises effectively. Observers praised the integration of human empathy with strategic thinking, noting that the billionaire's actions embodied an ideal combination of moral responsibility, immediate decision-making, and emotional support. The narrative encouraged viewers and readers to consider how they might respond in their own spheres of influence when confronted with moments that demand moral courage and swift, ethical action. Ultimately, the incident remained a touchstone for broader societal reflection. It underscored the fragility of life, the unpredictable nature of emergencies, and the critical importance of empathy, presence, and rapid response. The child's bravery, the mother's resilience, and the billionaire's decisive intervention formed a narrative that transcended local interest, offering lessons about humanity, responsibility, and the ways in which individuals can affect meaningful outcomes in times of crisis. Through reporting, social discussion, and expert analysis, the story became emblematic of a timeless truth: that wealth and status, while influential, are secondary to the moral choices individuals make when confronted with the immediate needs of others. By the close of the day, the narrative had firmly established itself as a story of courage, urgency, and empathy, inspiring both admiration and reflection across multiple spheres. The